Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy YouTube channel. This is Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks,
And this is Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop.
and we're back to talk about some new details from Noah Hawley's upcoming Alien series for FX. Things have been a bit quiet on the on the Alien FX front for what six? How long ago
Since
was it?
last December, I think that's when
6 months.
they
God,
officially announced the development of the series.
December or September? Sorry,
It was December.
December. Yeah, God, 6 months. A bit of stuff's been happening. We know stuff's been happening, but we have to be careful with that one.
Yep.
But yeah, Noah's actually come out and spoke about some of what we can expect, and I guess just a bit of an update on the situation there with the show. So let's just go to our article, and this comes via a interview with Vanity Fair. And this was written by our staffer, AJ, aka Voodoo Magic. Okay, so news has been very sparse lately when it comes to the highly anticipated new Alien television series currently being developed for FX networks. Originally announced last December, FX chief John Landgraf indicated at the time that they were moving quickly to bring audiences the first television series based on one of the greatest science fiction horror classics ever made. Fun aside there, in the 80s, apparently they were looking at doing an alien TV show, but there was only ever one comment that came out about that. Never found any details on it afterwards. So just something to have I think I mentioned it in our article about the Alien 2s that never were actually. So the one piece of stuff that seems to exist on that's in there. You can find that in there on the article.
Something that was live action, huh? Not the Operation Aliens.
Not the Operation Aliens. Also, you can find out about Operation Aliens on an article on the website or our YouTube video. I sort of looked into the rumors regarding that. But anyway, since that revelation, however, new updates in regards to this anticipated series have been few and far between. Well, now, thanks to an interview over at Vanity Fair, showrunner Noah Hawley has provided plenty of new exciting details regarding Alien's first foray into episodic television. First, in regards to the series being fast-tracked, Noah explained why the pace of the show's development may have slowed down and that it's important to get it right. He also revealed that shooting will perhaps begin next spring. I was going to say string then. Okay, so first quote. I've written a couple of scripts, the first two scripts, and we're looking to make them next spring. When you get to something with this level of visual effects, there's a lot of preparation that has to go into it. What's been really illuminating is to see the entire film industry had to take a year off. Now they're trying to jam 2 years of production into 1 year. So it's very hard to look on the planet Earth and see where you might make something in the next 6 months. Everyone is racing to make up for lost time, so I figure let that bubble burst a little bit and we'll do it right. Which I think makes complete sense.
Yeah, I mean, really everything that happened over the past year, I mean, things are slowly starting to get back to normal, and he's right. I mean, there was a lot of catch-up going on, especially in the entertainment industry. Gaming as well. Like, lots of projects were delayed. Things that were supposed to be out by now have been pushed back. So, I think it's good to be patient with this. I mean, more than likely we're getting it next year, which is going to be awesome, right? We'll have a year with a new Predator movie,
probably end of 2022.
Oh, what?
Probably be end of 2022 if they're filming.
Right. Later in the year, I would imagine. So yeah, I honestly don't see it as that long of a wait, really. I mean, a year and a half. So
it's already been 7 months since this was announced in the first place. Yeah?
Less than that, a little more than a year.
And even in this world of the virtual sets now, with how well Mandalorian's getting, those facilities need to be built. The more popular that technique gets as well, because I don't think there's massively many of those. I'd be very interested to see how Noah's actually going to do this. How practical he's going to get in terms of those sets. And speaking of sets and locations, then I guess Noah also explained why he picked Earth as the setting for the series, which has been perceived as a controversial choice amongst some fans. Yeah, it's definitely been talked about and whinged about and debated about. So, from Noah's perspective, it's a story that's set on Earth also. The alien stories are always trapped in a prison, trapped in a spaceship. I thought it would be interesting to open it up a little bit so the stakes of what happens if you can't contain it are more immediate. Now, I think I struggle to get behind that reasoning, mostly because we've heard that it takes place in the near future.
Yeah.
So, timeline dependent, obviously, it's not really an immediate threat because there's no aliens running around on Earth
Yeah,
for
I
another
mean,
200 years.
you have to
Well,
assume
400 years, 300 years.
if it is near future, and if he means by that it's taking place before the films, that there's not going to be some massive Earth outbreak. Like, it has to be a contained location. And I don't see an issue with Earth as a setting. Like, I remember people complaining about this and AVP as well. Like, it's just this thing where, like, if the aliens make it to Earth, it somehow seems to cheapen Ripley's sacrifice or something like that. But I never got that. I mean, we've had Earth in the Earth War comics. I know that was different, like a whole planet was taken over, but I think as long as it's done right and as long as it's done in a way that doesn't break continuity, if there was like this massive alien thing that everybody knew about on Earth, then yeah, that would be a little okay. But as long as it's handled in a way where it's plausible that like people widely still wouldn't know about what happened, then I'm fine with Earth as a setting.
See, I get the whole invalidate Ripley sacrifice thing. I do. I completely understand it. But also speaking from a narrative point of view, I think it becomes too predictable that it's obviously not going to get out. So the stakes aren't quite what they could be, which is why I kind of prefer things like this where they want to tell larger scale stories or have a larger scale stakes would be better served being on a more developed colony world, for example. You
I mean,
know,
but Ripley's sacrifice, can't you apply that to she was just trying to get rid of the alien threat in general? So wouldn't like any piece of EU material where the aliens are back right after that invalidate her sacrifice? I mean, like even
yeah,
AVP
but
Eternal where they're on Earth and they're like in
are
the sewers
you
and stuff. Like,
are you going to count this as EU? Not quite
no,
held
you're
to the
not.
same route. So I think that really becomes more of a matter when we're talking about cinematic or canonical kind of things like that. Because as
True,
far as canon goes
but we
now,
almost had Alien 5, which would have, thrown a big wrench into canon,
but if
which
we'd have got it, you'd have something, you'd have a leg to stand on with that one. But no, you
I'm just
don't.
saying it's not always good to be tied down by canon either. Yes, it should, like, continuity should be respected, but sometimes it's good to have multiple continuities. Although that can also bite you, like the Terminator franchise, where it's too many continuities and too many restarts, and we're
It
just like,
works for
okay,
Terminator though because of the
because of the
alternate
time travel.
timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I've thought this for a long time. I would like to see larger scale stakes, but I want to see him on a really well developed colony. That's what I want, and you can get away with having more immediate threats, more immediate stakes, and consequences, and not the expectation that everything's going to be all right. Because this is Alien, everything shouldn't be all
Well,
right at the
there's
end
still
of
going to
it.
be consequences for whoever's dealing with these aliens. I mean, the stakes will be high for them and for
Yeah, well,
whatever locale on Earth that the aliens are infesting. But
we'll see. We'll see. Though that's my opinion on when it comes to that kind of setting. And so I don't think AJ's written about it here, but Noah did also confirm this is not a Ripley story, which I think was a given. I would hope was a given,
yeah,
but it's nice to have confirmed there because the alien's insistence on being tied to Ripley is damaging, and I think we saw that Alien Isolation got away with it. But then when we have things like some of the Out of the Shadows was a lot better than it should have been. but it was hampered by it being tied to Ripley. Sea of Sorrows. That whole Ripley connection in that could have been handled better, in my opinion, because I thought it should have been a
Not to
descendant of
mention
Ripley.
Resistance and Rescue, where they just dragged out Amanda's story. I mean, but also I think he's saying this more for people that have not explored the EU too much, because for people who haven't, they will associate Ripley with Alien more. It's an easy confusion to make there with the names. But for people who have been into the EU like us, there's tons of Alien stories that do not have Ripley involved at all. So this is nothing new for us. And yeah, this is what we were expecting. But I think for someone who's seen the Alien movies, maybe likes the Alien movies, but they're more of a casual fan and they haven't read the books, they haven't read the comics, it's good for him to clarify so that expectations are not set up that they will see Ripley again or whatever.
And now on to the hot topic of this particular piece of news.
See, we thought the main controversy was going to be with the Earth setting, but it's actually about the theming that Hawley brings up. So why don't you go through this, Aaron?
So on some level, it's also a story about inequality. You know, one of the things I love about the first movie is how 70s of movies it is, and how it's really this blue-collar space trucker world in which Yaphet Kotto and Harry Dean Stanton are basically waiting for Gadot. They're like Samuel Beckett characters, ordered to go to a place by a faceless, nameless corporation. The second movie is such an 80s movie, but it's still about grunts. Paul Reiser is middle management at best. So it's the story of the people you send to do the dirty work. In mine, you're also going to see the people who are sending them. So you will see what happens when the equality we're struggling with now isn't resolved. If we as a society can't figure out how to prop each other up and spread the wealth, then what's going to happen to us? There's that great Sigourney Weaver line to Paul Reiser where she says, "I don't know which species is worse. At least they don't fuck each other over for a percentage." Not quite a verbatim quote there, but you get the gist of it. So this has been, I want to say, surprising reaction, but it's not in this day and age, unfortunately. So apparently there's this commentary out there that aliens suddenly gone woke. And to quote one of my favorite things from Tristan Jones, if you don't know the name, he was the artist who worked on the first half of Aliens Defiance. The dude gets aliens so well, and he draws aliens so well, up there with Killian Plunkett.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things he said in the wake of the Marvel acquisition of Alien and Predator was something to the effect of, those worried that Alien's going to go woke under Marvel, it was never fucking asleep. So how do you feel about this sudden realization?
I mean, yeah,
people don't know Alien always had a...
You look at some of the stuff on Twitter and you definitely see some people that are thinking Hawley's just going to push this hardline message here, and others that are like, did you guys see the original films? Like, they had obvious political and socioeconomic subtext, like that was there. And I'm kind of that stripe. You know, I think that Alien has always had a lot of socioeconomic, political commentary, whatever you want to call it. That's been there, especially in the first and second film.
Especially, yeah.
James Cameron
to go as far
talked...
as the third film as well, you know, Ripley says she doesn't... Do you think Wayland's going to give a shit about you?
Right. Yeah, and I know some people are just kind of saying, well, that's just a bad corporation. That doesn't mean anything about society at large. And I'm like, okay, come on now. Yeah, it does. But I was reading a book recently, which was James Cameron's Story of Science Fiction, which is kind of like the book version of that little miniseries he did of interviews, if you remember that. And he talks about contemporary issues and political theming in his works, and that's something that he does, but he doesn't do it at the expense of a good story, which is what I think people are kind of worried about. Like, yes, I can admit that politics in media these days can be clumsily handled, and sometimes it can come across as preachy, and sometimes it can come across as obnoxious. But I also think it's very premature to just write something off entirely, um, because you're seeing.
Especially when it's so rooted in the series as well.
Yeah, yeah. Now, could it be handled in a poor way? Sure, but I mean, I'm not familiar with Hawley's shows personally. I still have yet to watch them, but people who have watched them tell me that they're great. So I have to assume he didn't, you know, handle things terribly there if he had anything he wanted to convey in terms of subtext.
If anything, I think it shows an understanding of the material of the series.
Yeah,
In that, in that is an overarching theme of a lot of the films, and it's like we talk about in the podcast. The older I get, the more I identify with certain elements and messages in the original films as we come to experience them ourselves. It becomes relevant and relatable. So again, yeah, it is entirely going to depend on how it's handled. Within the show, is it going to be in your face? In which case, yes, I can understand that being something to complain about. But Alien and Aliens weren't terribly subtle with the message, but it sort of reinforced what was going on at the time. And I suppose it says something to them being handling it well and not being too. I don't want to say it's not on the nose because it's so on the nose, and
yeah.
I don't understand how people
Well,
may have missed this, but
yeah,
I suppose
it's
it depends where you're coming, because on many levels, Alien in particular has a lot going for it. It's a Lovecraftian thing. It's a haunted house story, but it all is so very, very anti-corporate in terms of
yeah.
what about our lives, the goddamn fucking company kind of thing. So I don't know. It's a weird
I think people
situation.
have latched on to the wealth inequality and spread the wealth kind of thing.
Yeah, there seems to be a
Um,
very communist narrative going
yeah,
around,
which again, like
which
you
is just
poll, you look at, not to get too into politics here, but you look at recent polling in the United States, people are very concerned of wealth inequality and regardless of their political ideology. Um, people are worried about Amazon swallowing up every other company and what that means. And
well,
that's
and Disney
relatable
as
to like
well,
Wayland Yutani. Right. Exactly.
which I find
So,
so funny because these, distinctly anti big corporate monopoly kind of things, where the bad guy is Disney, is owned by
yeah.
Disney, basically. It's
Yeah. I don't think Holly is going to do something as overt as down with capitalism. I mean, just because you have critiques of something doesn't mean you're advocating for its opposite. So,
mhm. So I find it weird, but also amusing. But it gives me some confidence to know that Hawley does understand that there's more to Alien than just space monster from the depths kind of thing.
yeah, it's like Starship Troopers, right? You can watch that and you can be like, that's a cool movie about Marines killing big bugs and stuff. But there's a lot more going on in that movie than just that. I definitely recommend people check out the documentary / film essay, Alexander Philippe's Memory, The Origins of Alien, because they talk a lot about the theming and subtext of Alien. And yeah, so
Well,
some of
some of
it,
that's reaching.
some of it's reaching, some of it's film academic garbage for sure. So yeah, art is subjective. You're going to see in it what you want to see in it. And we'll have to see if Hawley is asking questions or if he's promoting an answer. And that's another thing James Cameron said, and I recommend checking out that book again. James Cameron's A Story of Science Fiction. And in that first interview with him, he says, if I want to include a message, it's not to the detriment of the story, and someone can take or leave the message. That's up to them. And if they don't take it, they at least have a good story they can enjoy. And I think
And
that's what.
science
Sorry, go ahead.
and science fiction is inherently a political
Yes,
genre. I mean,
very much so. I mean, you watch
it's
shows
always
like The Expanse, like, yeah.
well, it's always. I mean, in general, it's always been used to talk about relevant modern day politics. I mean, go back to War of the Worlds. That was about colonialism.
Yeah. Same with
So
Avatar as well. So
it's a part of the genre.
yeah, it very much is. And art and politics have always been intertwined, which is why I kind of have to roll my eyes when people are like, keep politics out of my favorite franchises. And it's like, it's just politics isn't everything. It's unavoidable. It's how it's handled that is going to come down to whether I think people have an aversion to the theming in the show or not. But it doesn't sound like anything out of line with what we've seen in the Alien franchise before, for me personally.
And it's not like, and I mean, again, to go back to the whole communism thing, because that's something that people have picked up on it apparently being anti-capitalism and all that kind of stuff. Noah didn't say that. He just talked about spreading the wealth, and that's been extrapolated as this whole Noah's a communist kind of thing.
I mean, look at someone like Elon Musk. The dude supports UBI. He's no communist. Like, so the spread the wealth thing does not equal I know for some people it does. I know for some people, like, anything that's not letting capitalism do whatever is communism. But that, again, that's getting too into politics. But I don't think Hawley is going to promote like a blatantly anti-capitalist message. No, he's going to have a critique of hyper-capitalism, which is what we've seen in the Alien universe before. And hyper-capitalism is defined as extreme capitalism at the expense of traditional values like human life, and we've seen that in Alien, that companies very much
expendable.
Yeah. So yeah, these were always obvious themes to me in the Alien universe, and it just seems like he's going to be expanding upon them and exploring them on a wider scale in terms of people who are at the tops of these companies, if there is more companies involved than Weyland-Yutani.
Indeed. Right, well, what about you guys and girls out there? How are you feeling about this? Is this a boon to your interest in knowing that he gets some of the subtext of some of the other entries in the series, or is it a big no for you? You have to let us know down in the comment section below. As always, you can find us on various other outlets, all of which are on the bottom of the screen now, all the other social areas, and you can head back to our main channel and check out some of our other content, including podcasts, editorial pieces, gameplay. Go check that out. If you like what you see, give us a subscribe, give us a like, smash that like button, as they say, and help support the channel and AVP Galaxy overall. Right, well, this has been Corporal Hicks.
RidgeTop.
Thank you for watching.